Hey guys, this is Alex, and today's video is going to be something a little different. I'm sorry I haven't posted in a while, but RaiderIO came out today with a kind of like a recap of kind of statistics of like bosses and dungeons and everything that RaiderIO really tracks about your character through the entire part of BFA, and then show you kind of what you did. And I thought it was pretty cool, and a lot of other YouTubers are doing it, and I thought I might as well get a chance to give some storytelling to you guys, tell some stories about myself, so you guys can get to know me a little bit better. As well as if you guys want to do this yourself, all you gotta do is have a RaiderIO account and link your Battle.net as well, and you can. There should be a link on that website to also show it for yourself as well if you're interested in seeing some of the stats. But yeah, I'm just gonna. There's just a lot of storytelling, nothing really like. It's just pretty much about me, pretty much, and just about stories. And sorry about that Discord notification. Let me turn that off. So it doesn't bother throughout the rest of the video. So let's get started. So a little bit interesting when you see this, you're gonna notice like, oh my god, like it goes from like least to most. But I didn't play at the start of BFA. I did not start BFA. I took a break towards the end of Legion during Tomb of Sargeras. I was in a very high competitive Mythic guild, and I got pretty burnt out. Just basically, it was a very intense raiding schedule and just a lot of wiping and just bashing our heads against the boss. And it was just, I was just getting burnt out. So I took a break, and I honestly thought I wouldn't come back to this game. I was like, I'm pretty much done with WoW. And I was playing other games like Apex, Fortnite. Yes, you can make fun of me about that. A lot of shooters. I like a lot of shooters. And then like a couple other MMOs like Arcade, Unchained. I forget, but like I played like a vast variety of games. I was all over the place, and I enjoyed my time. It was a nice breath of fresh air, because the one thing that was liberating about playing those games was I could play whenever I wanted. Whereas like in WoW, if you're in a raiding guild, you're forced to log in at those raid times, and so not having like a constricted schedule where I have to log in at these times or being forced to play was kind of very liberating. And it still is when you don't have to do that. But what happened was I was just playing a lot of these shooters where it's just like matches, or they come and go, and there was no real sense of progression. And I was looking for a game that would kind of like satiate that hunger of where I would log off and I can log back on and continue back on my progress. And I tried. I played a game called Arcade Unchained, it's another MMO, and it was interesting, but it wasn't my style, and it was really PvP oriented, and I really don't like PvP unless it's literally shooters. And I was trying Black Desert, I was trying everything, and nothing was sticking. So I was like, you know what? I don't have the WoW itch, but I do know that WoW has content. It's like whatever there is, it's gonna be good. It has a good player base too, and it's just gonna be a solid game. It may not be like exactly what I'm looking for, but it's gonna be a solid game. So I came back towards the very end of BOD. I saw the cinematic for BFA, and I was like, I thought it was a totally different game, because I was like, why are we fighting each other? Why is Alliance and Horde fighting each other? We just had this expansion of Legion where we're taking down the Burning Crusade and like all these big bad guys together, and then literally next expansion we're fighting each other. I was like, what? I was like, this does not seem interesting. And I don't think I was wrong there. But yeah, I came back at the very end of BOD. So the 4 Uldir boss kills, or from, I think, just like going back and achievement. So I didn't play Uldir. I came back literally at the end of Battle of Dazalor. I joined this guild called Fireside. I used to be in that guild before, and I just knew it was a solid guild. It was run by a nice husband and wife, and I literally raided one full clear of Battle of Dazalor on Heroic and got my ahead of the curve. I think it was literally on the last week of the patch, or that's when the guild was taking a break. I don't know which one happened, but literally I just did BOD once, and that was it. So like, I got to see the boss fights, all of them, one time. Obviously now I've like done them more frequently for like the mounts, for like the Mythic Drain and Mount and whatnot, and then cleared on normal, I think, for achievements. But yeah, I only did Battle of Dazzalore once. But from my one run in there while it was current, I thought it was a very interesting looking raid. I thought it was really cool. I thought the Jaina fight was probably, even though I didn't get to like do progression on it, I think it's probably would have been a very fun fight for me, like a top fight. Everything else was fine. I think the Mechatork, I think everyone hated that fight, and I did that one. Even my guild was wiping on it when we were doing the full clear. It's because of just the communication involved, so that was fun. Outside of it, it seemed like a pretty interesting raid, kind of like that Zandalari feel, you know, that troll feel, I guess. So yeah, got to play that. Crucible of Storm, I think Crucible of Storm was out when I was playing at the end. I don't know. I think this was out. I don't think this was current. So I never got to try this. We went back in 8.3 to try one boss on normal, and it was still hard for the group that I was in. So I have no opinion on Crucible of Storm. I just heard it's hard as fuck. And then Eternal Palace. This was my actual real first progression in BFA, progression raid in BFA. And it's been a long time since I did progression raiding, because it was during Tomb of Sagaris. That was the last time I did it. And my overall thought was, I was still with Fireside at that time. That killed. My overall thought of the raid was, it was pretty interesting. The first boss, Abyssal, was a very big wake-up call on Heroic. Like, you know, usually you think the first boss in Heroic was kind of a pushover. It seemed like it wasn't. It was very healing intensive. A lot of to keep track of, a lot of personal responsibility. I hated the Behemoth fight, the one where you're in the water. I just hate fights where you have to swim, dude. I just no. I know they gave good trinkets or whatever, but it was just like, no, I wasn't a fan of that fight. What was it? Wrath of Ashara, where you do circles around the boss. That was whatever. Ashvane was a very interesting fight. I actually liked that fight. It was a big DPS check and a big healing check. Obviously, when you were overgeared, it kind of just it was like whatever. But when it was progression, it was really interesting and really fun, because like you had to figure out when to use hero or when to pop your cooldowns for the timing of everything, of all like the barnacle and shields and stuff like that. So that was very interesting. Orgazoa, to me, is just like whatever kind of boss. Same thing with the council, like the double bosses, I forgot what it's called, and the two Naga bosses. That was for us a hard boss, like even during farm, but it was whatever. And then Zakul and Ashara. I like Zakul. I wasn't a fan of Ashara as a last boss. For my opinion, Ashara was most of the time dealing with like the rune stuff and fighting her ads and popping the bubbles on the ads, and then doing the what's it called, the thing where you gotta press the button. Like the word is not coming to my mind right now, but you know what I'm talking about. You have to pop it or something, or else they would explode and he'll ready to take damage. So that fight was okay. We had decent progression on it. We got AOTC on it, I think, in a somewhat competitive time. The guild is somewhat of a casual but decent heroic guild, if I had to call it that. But yeah, Eternal Palace was interesting. I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. And then Nyaloth, as you can see, obviously we had the longest patch here. I would say the raid, when it came out, it was amazing. I liked most of the fights. I'm not gonna go through every boss like I did with Eternal Palace, but it was fun. My only complaint really is the scarce amount of loot per bosses, like, you know, Shadhar, and then like Vexiona. Like Vexiona like literally just gave a chess piece, like an Azeroth chess piece, and that was it. So I understand with just how like the gearing was in BFA and how many bosses there was. It was kind of hard to have a pretty dense loot pool, but that was my only complaint. There was nothing that was too crazy. The soccer boss was a very cool addition. That's usually a lot of Blizzard. They kind of recycle a lot of mechanics for boss fights, but that was new and interesting. I liked Mott. because even on farm, it was something that was always fun, the way his mechanic works of bouncing back damage. But overall, Nihilotha, I think the fact that it lasted so long kind of soured the taste of it. But I think it was a pretty good raid. But yeah, as you can see, I played more towards the end, especially now. Let's see here, raid progression. As you can see, we had 50 days. So Ashar did give us a lot of trouble, mainly because we were dealing with the rune management, like when to step on them and how long we should keep her at it. So that was somewhat longer. I think we probably could have killed her in probably a week or two earlier. And then the Zoth we actually killed pretty fast, in my opinion. Seven raid resets for, I think, the guild and the group we were in was a pretty good time. I just think with the corruption and the neck pieces and the cloak, it kind of just made the fights a little bit easier. It's just the only big thing about that fight is just super long. But yeah, I think, in my opinion, for a casual heroic raiding guild, it was a two-day raiding guild. We did pretty good, and I was pretty happy with the results we had. But yeah, as you can see, I did not raid in the beginning at all. Mythic Plus. So as you can see, same thing applies. Did not play it at season 1 at all, so I'm obviously gonna have 0. I started playing in season 2 and season 3 and season 4. My thoughts on season 2 for, I guess, the 11 dungeons I did. It was interesting. It was somewhat. I think I was still trying to get a grasp of like what reaping was, like where are these things coming from, and then I was wondering like why aren't we getting percentage from killing these things? But yeah, reaping was just whatever. But it was basically my first taste of getting into Mythic Plus, Mythic Plus this expansion. Sorry, I did do Mythic Plus in Legion quite a bit. But getting a feel for like the dungeons and learning all the mechanics, because I was behind and everyone else had already seen these dungeons at launch, and I was learning it for the first time, as well as learning what reaping was. So that was fun, but I only obviously did 11 dungeons. As I said, I joined literally at the end of the patch. Season 3 I did 58 dungeons. I timed, as you can see, the dungeons I did. Was someone curious what I did? Yeah, okay, so I didn't time any 15s there. I would say pretty casually I was getting more involved with the game. The guild I was in also didn't run too many Mythic Pluses. I think it was also during the time of Christmas and Thanksgiving, I think, or somewhat close. So like people's availability weren't too open, so I didn't run too much. My thoughts on it was stupid. Beguiling was a stupid affix. It was cool because it was like, yeah, themed around Ashar, but it just wasn't really anything interesting. Awakened, as you can see, ran a lot more dungeons than the previous seasons, and my thoughts on it, I like it. I like the pylons. It's very interesting. It's gonna be really weird now because it's like you can't skip when we go into Shadowlands. You can't skip unless you have a rogue. We're going back to the old meta of having a rogue for Shroud. But I joined another guild on my Druid, and I was also in a lot more consistent groups. Or it was like a consistent five-man group, and we'll get into that I think when we scroll down more. But yeah, I had a couple of consistent groups where we would run like either like every Tuesday or at a certain time every day. So I got to really learn how to do the dungeons effectively and also be a Resto Druid, because I think in season 3 I wasn't a Resto Druid because my guild didn't have room for a Resto Druid, so I only think I healed a few, so I was balanced in these two, I think. And then season 4 is when there was a spot open, and then that's how I started playing Resto Druid. I did play Resto Druid at the Mythic level in Legion, so it's not like I just started learning Resto Druid for the first time. But yeah, as you can see, a big chunk of it was this season. And then you're an alcoholic, I guess. A lot of people have this because, especially during 8.3, we had so much time that it was like kind of hard not to make level up characters or play other characters. But as you can see, obviously, Restoration Druid, 112 runs. Balanced Druid, I pride myself that I can play dual spec very well. I think I play. I'm the belief of if you play a tank or a healing spec, you should be able to have a viable or perform viably on one of the DPS specs if the case arises. Like say for example, if you have 4 healers but the fight really doesn't have a lot of damage going out, you could do 4 healers, but you can do 3 and go make 1 healer go damage, and that would make the fight go faster. But if all 4 healers don't heal or just heal and don't know how to do any damage, then that sucks. So I think it's just always good to be flexible, especially when you get to a little bit more higher competitive guilds. They really look for that, people who can dual spec, because it's gonna help out you and your group and your guild out in general. So I did a lot of Balanced Druid. I love it, and we'll see how it is in Shadowlands. The pre-patch is gonna come out, and I know Balanced Druid is changing quite a bit. Blood DK, I love Blood DK. I mained it in WoD. I miss WoD Blood DK, but with patch 8.3 and how easy it was to get gear, I decided to gear up a Blood DK, and I just pugged like a bunch of dungeons by myself, and it was fun. It was like, because Blood DKs just have an insane amount of self healing. You basically are like another healing class, just the amount of healing you do. And obviously Guardian Druid did some for fun because I was just over geared, so I just did some dumb runs. And then here are like just some classes I played on. I think Ret, some of them are just literally 1 or 2 runs. But yeah, mostly resto and a lot of balance. Like I have a lot of friends who they already have a healer, so I'll come on Boomy and do damage. And then my Mythic Plus scores, kind of self-explanatory. Played casual on season 3, and then went a little bit harder in season 4. This one was actually interesting. This one was my most run dungeons was Waycrest Manor by like a lot, 54. I remember getting a lot of Waycrest keys, and also towards the end, people just preferred Waycrest because I think a lot of people had like shitty keys like King's Rest or something. So if you had a Waycrest, we just did it. I don't mind the dungeon. I think the dungeon's fine. Obviously the least amount is Siege of Brass. I have 11 runs on that dungeon, so I don't have a lot of experience Mythic Plus in it. I don't like it, especially on the Alliance side. They have to jump over the water stuff. I hate that. And then Workshop I actually don't mind. I was surprised it's kind of low on the list. It's a very straightforward dungeon, but I can see why we don't run it too much. And then TD Shrine I ran a little bit more towards the end and not in the beginning. But overall, I was just surprised how high Waycrest is. And then my buddies. So I only have season 2, obviously. So I guess a little story time. So Ak is a good friend of mine that he and me like played a lot of Fortnite. And he joined me when I came back to the game for Warcraft, because he also played, and I said I was looking for a game. Like I said, I was looking for a game to play, and I was like, I'm just going to go back to Warcraft. So he kind of joined with me. He's now Horde, though, and I hope he's doing well. I haven't talked to him in a while. Nimi and Bear, they're the husband and wife of the guild I was in called Fireside. She was the healer. He was the tank or DPS. Both good players, both good people. Shartea, he's now a warlock, but he's a funny dude. He was the I guess you would say the chatter of the raid, the person that would probably talk the most. I didn't mind him. Some people couldn't stand him. Some people loved him. It was just whatever. But he was always the person that was like the social butterfly of the guild. And then Nakama, I'm surprised, 2 runs together. So as you can see, 8, 6, 6, yeah. Not a lot of runs. He was a very good rogue, but unfortunately, he had a job position, so we didn't. He's like no longer part with us. And then for season 3, Acker, he made a demon hunter because of how strong demon hunters were this expansion. More Nimi and Bear. Baltus, this is a good friend of mine. He's a prop paladin from the same guild of Fireside. Pretty good tank. very just cool, even Steven type of guy. And then Ark. This dude, I played with him also when I was in Fireside in Legion. I was in that guild, and he was like the tank, but he could only do Mythic Plus runs and didn't raid with us because of his job. I think he couldn't join our raid nights, and he was also busy with kids, if I believe. And Season 4, this is where it kind of changed. So what happened is Fireside kind of broke up, or just Nim and Bear took a break. They just didn't want to play anymore, so we had to continue the guild into what's now known as Fireforged. And then so these are all the members from that guild that have moved over. Caiaphas, this guy, yeah, as you can see, 17, yeah, it's just in the teens in terms of runs, but this you can see it's a lot more runs. But Caiaphas, this guy is crazy in terms of pugging. He is, I think he's almost close to getting 3K IO, but he just loves doing Mythic Plus. He pugs just all day doing Mythic Plus. And yeah, that's what he likes doing. Oxidize, we call him, Oxide, yeah. Or we just call him Ox, sorry. He is a very smart player, probably one of the smartest players I ever played with. Very analytical, knows how to play his class. Knows how when he sees a fight, he not only knows how to approach it from his point of view, but from tanks and healers and all that type of stuff. So a very smart guy. Baltus, obviously our tank. Ark, and Believable, who joined us. I actually recruited him from the forums, as well as Ox. He played a druid as well. Joined us maining Resto Druid in the beginning, but I was the Resto Druid that had the spot there, so he played balance, but he also did heal. So he did both, and all these guys are pretty swell guys. But yeah, that's my Mythic Plus buddies. But yeah, played a lot. Obviously, there's a lot more that I would love to talk about, a lot more people I would like to talk about, but I guess these are my top people. And yeah, overall, I thought this expansion was pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. I obviously did not play in the entirety of it. And do I wish I played the entirety of it? No, I'm kind of happy I joined halfway, because from what it sounded like, especially in the beginning with like the Azeroth system, and just in the beginning, it just sounded like it was just a shit show in the beginning. So I'm glad that I kind of skipped all of that. The raids, like always, raids are always, the pivotal part. They're always just really good, and wow, that's why I play this game, is for raiding. Dungeons, I'm getting more into Mythic Plus now that I'm starting YouTube. I have my own YouTube going. I know a lot of people like seeing that content outside of raids, so starting to do that more often. But yeah, this expansion was just whatever. It was nothing too crazy, nothing memorable like Legion. Legion was a very good expansion. So I'm just happy that it's over. This was a very long content drought, but I'm excited for Shadowlands and to see what content there is, and look forward to making more videos for you all. But this was my Battle for Azeroth review. Again, if you would like to see your stats, and I'm not sponsored by anything, by RaiderIO or anything, all you got to do is make sure you have a RaiderIO account, link your Battle.net account, and then there'll be a link. And I think you have to declare which one's your main, or else it won't show you which one. I don't know exactly. I don't think it actually does matter, because I just think it counts for all your characters altogether. So yeah, make sure you have a RaiderIO account, link your Battle.net account, and then you can see your own. And then if you want to share it, just share it using the URL that it gives you. But thank you guys very much for watching. Hopefully I didn't blabber on too long. But yeah, that's a little bit about me and my journey through BFA. And I'm curious to hear about what your guys' thoughts on BFA was. Did you guys like it compared to other expansions? How have you progressed throughout the expansion and whatnot? So anyway, guys, thank you guys very much for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.